Okay, welcome to this video here. This is uh, this is going to be an important session. I have a lot to say. I recently I have my books on Amazon Kindle, and one of the books that I have, the Braha Sutras, we just made into an audio book, the Braha Sutras. This was my last book. It came out in 2022, 3 years ago. It's not the audio book that is on there now is not me speaking it. It's a robot or somebody that sounds like a nice man reading the Braha Sutras. And this is important. I had no idea what it would be like for people listening to it, but I sent the information to a couple of students, and they said, "Oh my God, this is great!" They're able to uh, sit there and actually hear the sutras. And one of the students said, "My God, 75% of what I'm hearing just sounds different. The difference between hearing it and reading it is very, very different." And I also thought about this a lot because I have students who tell me that they have read the sutras 5 times, and still they will ask me questions, and I'll say, "But you didn't get that from the sutras? It's in there very clearly." And the problem is that if I could go back in time, I would probably do those 216 sutras in the Braha Sutras Part 1 and the Braha Sutras Part 2. It's kind of like, it's too much information, I suppose, for people to grasp because they're reading, 5 or 10 sutras in a session. They miss a lot of it. Anyway, it's very, very important. So several people have told me they're listening to it and they're really getting more out of it. And part of this also is that Jyotish is an oral tradition. This is why Jyotish couldn't get to the West, because when we read the books were the books written by Indians and the ancient scriptures. They're very, very good when it comes to the calculations, but they're not very good for the actual interpretation material. So in any case, part of that is because they weren't really concerned with writing down the interpretive material. They were teaching it to their students orally. And that's really the best way to take in the information, I think. That's definitely the way I took it in. I had mentors that I sat with 6 weeks, one, 4 weeks with another, 3, 4 hours a night, and I would hear it. I would record the sessions, listen to the sessions all day long. That's how it sank in. Now, the pictures in the background, you'll see a picture there of Ganesh, the black Tonka, I forget what they're called, Ganesh, and right next to that is Saraswati. And there's a reason that I put those two up there. So it's because I live on a mountain, Mount Soma in North Carolina, with a Vedic temple. The Vedic temple is about 1,000 feet from me. I walk it in 5 minutes. I can see it from my balcony. And I go there every so often. And I was talking to Pandit Ji, and he happened to mention that Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge. And I went, "Wait a minute, but why do astrologers worship Ganesh? I thought Ganesh is the god of knowledge and information." And he said, "There's a distinction." He said, "Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge that is cognized. Saraswati is the goddess of the knowledge that comes from the Vedas. The Vedas were not written down. They were cognized, they were spoken, they were sung, people heard them. They didn't really write down the Vedas for quite a long time. So that's cognized information, information from God, you would say. So what is Ganesh? Ganesh, he said, is the god of intellectual knowledge. Intellectual knowledge, the knowledge that you figure out for yourself by using your brain. So in the Braha Sutras, I wrote it in 2021. It came out in 2022. I must have said 50 times. in lectures since then. Sutra number 8 is the most important sutra because Sutra 8 is about the fact that the most important factor in doing astrology well is being able to reason it out and think it through. Think it through. And so when you go to the house of an astrologer like myself, you see Ganesh all over, all over the rooms. Ganesh is, when astrologers write books, they put Ganesh on the cover. All glories to Lord Ganesh, because Ganesh is the god of intellectual knowledge. In fact, I wanted to point out, this is my favorite. I have probably 10. Well, I probably have about 15 or 20 Ganeshas. This is my favorite. It's an old one, probably about 150 years old. It has colors. It's my favorite Ganesh out of all of mine. And the reason I'm telling the story is it's kind of interesting. Around, I don't know, 2015 or 2017, I had so many Ganesh statues and pictures around my house, and big ones, that I thought, oh, this is getting too much. So I took one of my 2 or 3 foot metal Ganeshas, put it in a box, sent it to my friend Jaime in Puerto Rico. I knew that he would love it. 2 weeks later, Jay Boyle, who does astrological gems, said, James, I was in India and I saw this Ganesh and I said, oh my God, James has got to have this Ganesh. So I got rid of one Ganesh only to get another, but the one that I got was, out of all, it's my favorite. So the thing about this business about being able to think for yourself, it is so critical. When I began doing Jyotish, Vedic astrology, Hindu astrology, I was 32, 33, something like that. I knew Western astrology for 3 or 4 years. Then I learned, I was in India with a mentor, Santanam taught me. And I came home thinking, well, this is a predictive system. It's not about me thinking it through. It's about that everything that we do is absolutely determined and predestined. And so I really approached it like that, like everything could be seen in the horoscope. And it soon became clear, a couple of years became clear that this is the wrong approach to think that I'm ever going to be able to do that. I can do a lot of predictions, I can get a lot of things accurate, but there is no way to get it all, because there's 8 billion people on the planet, which all have different lives. It's just way too complicated. Even with AI, artificial intelligence, you'll never be able to program, to get complete accuracy. That's just not going to happen. So the process of astrology is being able to think for yourself and to figure things out. This is why it kind of drives me crazy when I get emails from people where they ask me a question which they could easily figure out for themselves, but instead they want to go to the authority. I'm supposed to be the authority. I'm still learning. I learn all the time new things, but they come to me as an authority. And a lot of times now I say, well, what do you think? What does your mental process figure out from this? And so that is basically the way astrology has to be done. Anyway, so I had to redo a sutra in the book, and I want to explain this. So there's a technique called the Great Years of the Planets. It comes from Persian astrology, I believe. They talk about the Lal Kitab, which is not a Hindu Vedic book, but Indian astrologers are going to use whatever works. They'll use Western astrology, they'll use Jyotish, they'll use Chinese, they'll use whatever works. So when I was in India the second time, remember, I studied with Santanam, who was a Vedic scholar, I should say an astrological scholar. He had translated several scriptures. He has the best version of Parashara Horasara, which is the Bible of Parashara astrology. And he never mentioned this thing about the great years of the planets. I come back to India 2 years later. I'm with my second mentor, PM Padia, in Bombay. And Padia starts talking about the great years of the planets. In fact, the way I learned about the great years of the planets is fascinating. In the year or two that I was practicing astrology in Florida, I ran across an old friend from high school, hadn't seen him in 10 years. I said, come on over. I just got back from India. I'll do your horoscope. I'm doing his horoscope. Everything's going well. And then I say, so 2 years ago, you had this period. This looked like a pretty good period. I'm using the dashas and the bhuktis, the periods and the sub-periods, which are very traditional. He says, really? That was an okay period? I tried to kill myself. I fell off my chair. The next day, I picked up the phone to a travel agent. I said, get me a trip back to India, because I was so upset by this. I had been doing Hindu astrology for a year and a half, and Western, and occasionally things would go wrong, but I figured, well, I don't have that much experience. It takes time. But when he said that, I said, that's it. I'm going back to India. I go back to India. The first or second night, I said to Padia, because he was really good, he was a very good practicing astrologer. I said, why did this guy commit suicide? He says, when did it happen? I said, this particular year. He said, well, that was the 32nd year of his life, between 31 and 32, which was the great year for Mercury. Mercury comes of age in the 32nd year, between 31 and 32. Jupiter comes of age in the 16th year, between 15 and 16. Saturn comes of age in the 36th year. These are all in my books. So for a period of 40 years, I'm writing my books. I wrote 5 astrology books. I'm teaching, I'm doing lectures, I'm doing conferences, I'm doing videos, teaching that Mercury's the 32nd year. When I was doing I think it was the Braha Sutras, Andrew Mason in England, he's the one who puts my books together. He does the formatting and things like that for the Amazon books. He said, and he's a Vedic astrologer, and he said, James, where did you get this information about the great years? I said, they work really well. They really do. My Padia said, you'll gain fame, but not until your 36th year, because that's when Saturn comes of age. Saturn rules my career house. Sure enough, between 35 and 36, my book comes out. I become known. So for 40 years, I'm promoting that Mercury is the 32nd year, and it works well. The thing about the great years of the planets is when the planet ruling the ascendant comes of age, for me, it's Venus. I have a Taurus ascendant ruled by Venus. Venus is the 25th year. Between 24 and 25, that was a very important year because it rules the ascendant. I see this with people all the time. Well, my friend had a Virgo ascendant ruled by Mercury. Mercury was in the 8th house, life and death, sandwiched between 2 malefics like Mars and the Sun, or Mars and Saturn, very, very tightly. The ruler of the personality in the house of death, badly aspected. He's not in a Mercury period or sub-period, but Mercury comes of age and he tries to kill himself. So this worked very well. I used it for 40 years. Everything was going fine. Andrew says, where'd you get this from? I said, well, my teacher, Padia, said it was from Lal Kitab, which is a Persian book. So Andrew goes and finds 2, not 1, he finds 2 versions of Lal Kitab, meaning the same book, but interpreted or translated by 2 different authors. Everything is the same. Jupiter is 16, Mars is the 28th, Saturn's the 36th, but Mercury, it says the 34th year. Now I'm going crazy. For 40 years, I've been saying it's the 32nd year. And for 40 years, it has worked very well for me. If Mercury's very good, the person has a great year with Mercury conditions. Very bad, it's a bad year. I didn't know what to do. So I emailed Padia, who a few years ago was probably 80. He says, no, it's the 32nd year. It's not the 34th. I say, well, why are these books? 2 books say the 34th year. Now, Padia is not terribly fluent in English anymore. He was better when I was there 40 years ago. He's not so good with English and not really a scholar. All he could tell me was, it's definitely the 32nd. My experience was that it was the 32nd, but these 2 books said the 34th. The way that I approach astrology is with a great deal of skepticism. If you don't approach it with skepticism and be really serious about getting it accurate, you have all these beliefs and superstitions. So I couldn't find any information. So I actually wrote a sutra that said Mercury is the 34th year, and I explained, that Padia still says the 32nd. Anyway, for some reason, about a month ago, I thought, I tried every couple of years, I would email Padia and say, what do you know about this? And I wouldn't get any information. About a month or two ago, I said, I have 1,500 Facebook friends, probably 1,200 of them are Indian because I do Indian astrology. So I put it out there. I said, can anybody help me with this issue? What do I find out? I find out that there's different sources, and the long and short of it is basically that the Lal Kitab regarding Mercury is not accurate. The Lal Kitab is accurate. It matches all the other Vedic scriptures, but not with Mercury. So I finally had to change this. So I went back into the Braha Sutras in Kindle, and I changed that sutra. And while I was there, I said, as long as I'm there, let me add something that I wanted to add. I pulled out a sutra that was not so important and added a page about just how important rulerships are and aspects. The problem with astrology, the books and the students, is that we read the books, and the biggest section in the books is the planets in the houses. The sun in the first house means a strong personality. The sun in the seventh house means marriage is extremely important and the partner's going to be very strong-willed and bossy. So you read, 50 pages, 100 pages on the planets in the houses because it's so extensive. But there's very little written about the rulerships, and the rulerships are more important than the planets in the houses. If you go to buy a house, you would rather have a house with a good foundation, not one that's eaten away by termites or, swamped with water. You want a solid foundation. Even if the furniture is not great, the foundation needs to be great. So the rulerships in the horoscopes are more important, slightly more important. I can't say they're hugely more, but they're extremely important. In the 12-session class that I gave, I must go over at least 10 or 15 out of 50 horoscopes. I go over at least 10 or 15 charts where the strongest house in the horoscope has no planets in it. And people go, really? That's the strongest house? There's nothing in there. No, there's nothing in there, but the ruler of that house is exalted, aspected by Jupiter within 1 degree, and maybe the house is well aspected. So I wrote a sutra in there, and I just want to mention that aspects and the rulerships are so critical. If you take my classes, they're on the website. I analyze 50 horoscopes, and you can see that. Another thing that I added into the sutras, I didn't add a whole sutra, but I talk about the Bhava chart. So there's 2 house systems. In the ancient house system, the ascendant can be 2 degrees. The first house can be 2 degrees. You could have Saturn in 28 degrees of the same house, same sign. It's still in the first house. But there's a second house system called the Bhava, where that Saturn is more than 15 degrees away from the ascendant degree. So if the ascendant degree is 2 degrees Taurus, and there's a planet in 20 degrees Taurus, it's in the first house, but it's also in the second house. I've talked about this a lot, but I want to mention 2 things about this, or 1 thing about this. We say that the ascendant degree is the middle of the house. So if the ascendant is 2 degrees, we go backwards. So if it's 2 degrees Taurus, then we say anything 15 degrees past that, which would be 17 Taurus. Once a planet gets to 17 Taurus, it's 15 degrees past the ascendant degree. And now it starts to be in the first and the second. Likewise, before that 2 degrees. So if a planet is in 17 or 18 or 19 degrees of Aries, it's in the 12th house. It's also in the first house. A planet 15 degrees before or 15 degrees after, once it gets to that point, it starts to be in 2 houses. What I want to mention is that the 15-degree marker is an approximation. It's an approximation. So if I see a planet just exactly 15 degrees before the ascendant, exactly 15 or 16 past the ascendant, I don't go crazy with it. If it's 20, 18 or 20, I know it's going to be in two houses. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the Bava chart is called the Bava chart. It's a different house system, but it's not really a chart. You don't draw a chart and put the planet in that other house. No, you're looking at the regular chart, the natal chart, and you use your brain. You say, oh, that planet's so far away from the ascendant. Is it more than 15 or 15 before or more than 15? And you do it like that. It's not a chart that you draw on its own. So that's important. I also occasionally mention some things that are not astrological. There's a sutra in my book about people that have kidney stones, people that are prone to getting kidney stones. I talk about a product called Chanca Piedra. Chanca Piedra. We get it from Swanson Vitamins. It's very cheap. And a person that's prone to kidney stones, if they take one or two of these a day, they're not going to get kidney stones. And I've had people read that the Braha Sutras, and they write, oh my God, I'm no longer getting the kidney stones, which is a huge benefit. I found another product I want to mention. It's called Reflux Gourmet, Reflux Gourmet, and it's for people that have extreme heartburn and nothing fixes it except these proton pump inhibitors, which are really not good for you. So they don't want to take those. This particular product, after you eat a meal, you take a teaspoon of it. This is bizarre. You take a teaspoon of it, and I think it's made with seaweed, and it kind of sticks together. It's very kind of gooey. It tastes good, but anyway, you eat it right after the meal, and what it does is it stops the acid from going up the pipe. So some people get heartburn because they eat spicy foods. That's not what my problem came from. My problem came from anything I would eat, the acid would just go straight up. So this stops it. Okay, so I don't usually talk about this stuff in astrological talks, but I wanted to talk about that. Now, the other thing about this business about using your brain, using your own mind, the charts are mixed. Most charts are mixed. Most houses are mixed. So I learned this when I was teaching the classes. A student said to me, you know, for all these years, I could never get it. I could never do charts very well. He couldn't do them well because he thought that either the fifth house of children and investments was either good or it was bad. Either the career is indicated to be good or it's bad. Either the money is good or it's bad, indicated in the chart. But it doesn't work that way. Most people's lives are mixed. They have some good luck in the career and some terrible luck in the career. They make a lot of money sometimes and then they lose money. It's very mixed. So that's what I'm talking about. That's why Ganesh is the god of astrology, because you've got to be thinking things through. If you see the ruler of the marriage house, let's say the moon is the ruler of the marriage house. If it's 2 degrees away from Saturn, it's bad marriage. If it's 2 degrees away from Ketu, it's bad marriage. If it's 5 degrees away from Mars, it's bad marriage. But it's the thinking process that tells you what the problem is. You have to think it through. Well, if the ruler of the marriage house is next to Saturn, the partner is selfish and they take and take and take. If the ruler of the marriage house is next to Mars, the partner is fighting and angry. If the ruler of the marriage house is next to Ketu, the partner is crazy or, has drugs, alcohol, illusion. But this is a thinking process. So this was really, and I said, you never stop learning with astrology. And this really blew my mind that Ganesh is the god of intellectual knowledge. And because that is what is so important, not going to the scriptures and reading, what did this guy say? Or what did that guy say? You got to be skeptical about that. Now, next subject. I'm going to talk about a subject that is extremely dear to my heart. It has to do with gold and silver investing. And part of the reason it's dear to my heart is because I love, the gold and silver investment area and such. But really, it's dear to my heart mostly because when I was about 45 or 48 or 48, right after my son was born, I could no longer keep doing astrology. I knew I could no longer keep doing it because I couldn't make enough money to support a family with astrology. So that's when I invested in gold and silver stocks, and I made a small fortune. It's a fortune for me. I was able to stop doing astrology for 5 years. I was able to pay my bills. I put my son through college. I mean, this was from gold and silver. It was not from astrology. So I want to talk to you about this because this has to do with what is going on in the world today. And I'm going to start the story. Well, I think I'll start the story at the beginning, and then I'm going to get into the prediction that I made last year about gold, astrological. So it will tie into astrology. So when I was a little boy in 1957, I was 6 years old. My brothers were 10 and 11, something like that. And back then, the dollar, the US currency, was backed by gold and silver. And so when I was 5 or 6 years old, my 10-year-old brother, he took a dollar bill. And if you go to a coin store and ask for a dollar bill before 1964, it's going to say on it, $1 in silver, payable to the bearer on demand. It will say, you look at it, it says payable to the bearer on demand, $1 in silver, US Mint. My 10-year-old brother took the US dollar, put it in an envelope, sent it to the US Mint and said, all right, let's see. Let's see. They sent back, they didn't send a silver dollar. This is what a silver dollar looks like. This is not old, it's from 1973. But they didn't send a silver dollar because a silver dollar, they were made of silver, 90% silver back then. There's no silver in the coinage now, but they were made of silver, 90%. They didn't send a silver dollar because they had to send him $1 worth of silver. So they have to weigh, and they sent a bunch of silver filings, like silver, cut up, just a bunch of filings in a little packet. And we learned that the dollars were backed by gold. They were backed by gold and silver. This is extremely important. It's extremely important. And in the US Constitution, the framers of the Constitution, they did an awful lot of research about governments. And what they found was that fiat money, money that was paper, could be debased. You could print as much of it as you want, and you'd make the money worthless. On top of that, you could print as much as you want, and you could go to war anytime you want. You just print extra money. So in the US Constitution, which was, I don't know, I'm thinking 1776, but I'm not sure, it might have been 10 years later. But in the Constitution, they stated, I'm going to hold this up for you. First, I'm going to read it, then I'm going to hold it up. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. No state shall, blah, 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 make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Okay, so that's the United States Constitution. Now, around 1862, politicians, they want freedom to print money. They want to be able to do what they do. So the very strict gold and silver coinage was what people used. A gold coin, the size, this is a quarter, okay? Next to this dollar coin is a quarter. That's how big a silver dollar is. And that's a silver dollar. A gold coin like this was $20 way back then. Well, when they got to 1862, about 70, 80 years later, they decided we'll keep the gold in the vaults and we'll make pieces of paper, dollars, $5 bills, $10 bills, but it'll say in there payable. If you want the gold and silver, we got it. Okay, so they did that. Then in 1971 to 1973, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. He did this because we were printing money for that Vietnam War. Lyndon Johnson was printing dollar bills, billions and billions and billions to pay for the war. By the time this war, it wasn't even over. At a certain point, France said to the United States, when you pay us back, we don't want your dollars, we want our gold. That's what the dollars say, payable in gold or silver. Nixon said, no, we stop, we quit. And he took us off the gold standard, and that was called the Bretton Woods Accord, And when you have paper money, traditionally they last for 75 years and no longer. If it's a paper dollar, not a gold, not backed by gold, they will usually last about 75 years. So I'm bringing all this up because what's happening right now is that we are paying the price for these paper dollars. So as of a year ago, our dollar, as of about a year ago, was worth about 3 cents. In other words, if you had 3 pennies in 1900, that would buy what a dollar buys today. Now, this may not sound like much to you, but what this means is that they have debased our currency and they keep inflating, and this is really bad. And they've been doing this, and they've been printing money. Our government's been printing money and printing money. And when the 2008 crash came, they just printed money like crazy. And this is bad. This is not good. And you can't get away with it forever. So now the point has come where it's come to an end. Now, I thought this would come to an end during the pandemic. I even did a video on it. I told people, buy gold now, because this is going to be probably the final nail in the coffin, but it wasn't. Biden printed huge amounts of money, which created huge inflation. And now our debt is like 35 or 40 trillion. It can never be paid back. There's no way you can pay that back. It's impossible. You would destroy the economy saving that much money to pay it back. You destroy the economy. So last year, around I can't remember the exact month. I think it was April, May, June, somewhere June, July. It was around June, July. Uranus was going into Taurus in the sidereal zodiac. Now, there are 2 zodiacs. There's the Western zodiac, and there's or tropical. The Westerners use the tropical zodiac, and the Indians use the sidereal zodiac. They both work. It's not that one of them is correct and one of them is wrong. It's not that. They both work. And you can see it. When a major planet enters a tropical sign, things happen connected to that planet. Years later, when that planet enters the sidereal sign, again, the same kind of things happen. So when Uranus entered the tropical zodiac, I think it was 2018, Uranus is change, and Taurus is radical change, and Taurus is money and currency. Uranus went into Taurus, Bitcoin exploded from 2,000 to 20,000. It's not so much that it exploded, it's that it came on the scene. Everybody learned about Bitcoin. That was Uranus going into Taurus. Flash forward 7 years later to 2024, Uranus is going into Taurus in the sidereal system. Now, it's very rare that I make public predictions. I don't like doing it because if you're wrong, it's like it's egg on your face. Now, I did make a prediction in 2016 about gold going up. It occurred because I saw Jupiter entering Leo in the sidereal zodiac. Leo rules it rules copper, and it also has a lot to do with gold. So I thought that Jupiter transiting Leo would make the gold price explode, which would be great for me because I buy gold stocks. So Jupiter goes into Leo, nothing happens. I was like, really? So I was talking to Dennis Harness, another Vedic astrologer. I said, how could this be? Jupiter and Leo, Jupiter's luck. It should bring luck to gold. He says, maybe when Rahu goes in. Rahu is the north node. It's not a planet. It's a calculated point in the sky. So I wait a couple months for Rahu to go in. So I actually start to research. I started researching the last times that Rahu and Jupiter both were in Leo. And what do I come to? The 1849 gold rush. Rahu and Jupiter are in sidereal Leo, and the gold rush happens. Then I look to the next time Rahu and Jupiter go into Leo in 1979-80, and gold explodes. I also coincidentally looked into when Jupiter and Ketu go into Leo, and guess what happens? Gold goes up by 40%, but Ketu is very underhanded. Ketu is lying and cheating and deception. So gold went from $20 to $35 overnight in 1933 because Franklin Delano Roosevelt called in all the gold. He said, gold, you can't own gold anymore. Bring in the gold. Don't worry, we're going to pay you. We're going to pay you. Everybody brings in their gold coins. Nobody can own gold. It's against the law. They bring them to the banks. They give them $20. And the people are happy because, you know, what's the difference between a $20 piece of paper or a $20 gold piece? Not much. But as soon as Roosevelt gets all the gold, he raises the gold price from $20 to $35. So people have now, so gold rose, but it was a very underhanded way. Okay, so that's all interesting. So now I say, okay, so now in 2024, July, August, somewhere around there, I don't remember exact, Uranus is going to go into Taurus. And I think long and hard. Wait, let me go back. So when I saw that there was the gold rush, there was the 1979-80 gold. I haven't mentioned this, but in 1979 and 80, gold went from $250 up to $800. Silver went from 5 or 10 up to 50. Not long, very briefly, but gold went to $850, which in 1979 is like $5,000 today. So they exploded. So I saw that happened, and so I said, okay, so when Rahu is going to enter next month in January, February, I'm going to tell everybody to buy gold stocks. So I go on Facebook and I write this long article explaining everything I just explained. I said the time to get into gold and silver stocks is now, right before Rahu gets in January. When Rahu gets in January, the gold should start to explode. January comes, gold doesn't move. What the heck's happening? A month later, February, gold explodes upwards. So some people on Facebook said the reason it didn't work in January was because I used the true node instead of the mean node. Now, I had always used the true node until this occurred. They said that was not going to happen in January. In February, the mean node, it went in. So that's just a lesson for you. There's different opinions about this, but mine is you should use the mean node. So I made that public prediction. That was a good one. People made money. Very important. Listen carefully if you're doing astrology and making predictions. Jupiter transits a house for a year. Jupiter had already been in Leo alone for 3 or 4 months. Gold wasn't moving. Rahu comes in, gold explodes. 8 months later, Jupiter leaves that sign and gold comes down. It was over. It lasted 7, 8 months. So last year, I went on some a site where there's gold and silver people, and I made this prediction that a currency change is coming. Why? Because the first time Uranus went into Taurus, Bitcoin exploded and came on the scene, became a currency. So I said, now and back then I thought it would be gold, but I was wrong. It was Bitcoin. Now Uranus is coming into the sidereal Taurus, and this should be probably gold. It could be Bitcoin again, but I was thinking gold. So nothing happens. And I'm going, how could this be? How could this be that nothing happens? And then a couple months ago, I started to realize Uranus was not in Taurus alone. Uranus moved into Taurus at the same time as Jupiter. So my understanding of this, Jupiter is luck and protection. Uranus going into any sign is going to bust it up and make changes. That's not very pleasant. So Jupiter was protecting that. So Jupiter leaves Taurus in May 18th. Again, listen carefully if you're making predictions. When planets enter signs, Saturn entered Pisces in April. Jupiter enters Gemini May 18th. But I'm telling you from 45 years of experience, when a planet, not Sun, Moon, Mercury, forget those. Jupiter, Saturn, I'm talking. When Jupiter or Saturn enter a sign, you and your clients will feel it weeks before it occurs. Always, always. Saturn went into my 11th house, but a couple weeks before it went into the 11th house, I heard bad news about my friends. This is just normal. I've seen it over and over. So what I'm saying here is that in April, even before Jupiter left that Taurus and goes into Gemini, things started to change massively in two areas. One is gold, which has been going up. The tariffs came and gold has just been skyrocketing. And also, Jupiter has been in Donald Trump's 10th house, his career house, which has been very protective. It helped him win the election. Even in a terrible Venus bhukti, he won the election. Jupiter was in the 10th house, aspecting the sun and moon. Kamala Harris had nothing going on the day of the election. He had Jupiter in the career house, aspecting sun and moon. I thought Trump would lose because the sub-period of Venus is so bad. That started last October, before the election. He still won, I believe, because Jupiter was in that 10th house at the time of the election. So Jupiter's now leaving his 10th house, and now his reputation is going down, and Venus rules his career house. His afflicted Venus is in the 12th house, bad house, right next to Saturn. So it's a very, very bad Venus, and it's always caused career calamities. It's caused bankruptcies. When he goes into Venus, he's got the strongest career house of anybody I've ever seen, but the ruler of the house is very bad. So now that Jupiter is gone from there, suddenly he comes out with the tariffs, and suddenly his ratings are going down. And I think that stuff is going to continue, because the Jupiter's not going to protect him in that area. It may protect him in Gemini with friends and groups, but not the career. So, so I want you to understand that gold is the actual money, not the paper. And it's not that gold goes up. Gold hit $3,500 recently. It's not that gold goes up. It's that the dollar goes down. And this is what the tariffs are doing. I want you to imagine that a coin like this, only in gold, this is silver, a coin like this was $20 in 1933, 1932. It was $20. It's $3,200 now. It hit $3,500. It's not going to stop. It's going to keep going. Now, before 2008, in the years before the 2008 crash, the central banks were selling gold all over the world. They were selling their gold. Why should we hold gold? We can get the cash and invest in things. Why should we? So they're selling all their gold. They're selling all their gold. The economic crisis occurs in 2008 and 9, 7, 8, 9. And since that day, they have all been stockpiling gold. Russia and China especially have been stockpiling gold. It's it's going to keep going up, basically. Now, it's not so much that the gold is going up, it's that the dollars have become worth less. They don't buy as much gold. Gold is the actual currency, and the dollars go up and down, reflecting that. Now, the tariffs, the administration knows that tariffs are going to hurt the economy. They're not stupid. They know that. They know that if they put tariffs, everything is going to cost more, and they're willing to live with that. They think that it'll be okay. There'll be inflation, and people will pay it, and they won't grumble too much. Steve Moran, there's a man named Steve Moran, and he's part of Trump's administration. He's on the economic side. As soon as Trump was elected, he put out a thesis, and you can Google Steve Moran. I think it's Miran. I think Steve Moran. But what he said basically is that we need to lower the value of the dollar. We need to make the dollar worth less and less so that we can now compete with the other countries. We can sell our goods. That's the problem with having a strong dollar, is that you can't sell anything. We don't sell anything except our dollars, our currency. We sell our currency. We don't sell widgets. We don't sell steel. We sell very little of it. So they want to weaken the dollar. This is going to continue, and gold and silver are going to be the beneficiaries, and they're just going to keep going up. Now, in a real, true bull market in gold and silver, what happens is, in the real bull market, you may think that we've had a big bull market for the last 10 or 20 years, but the thing about what gold's been doing the last 20 years, gold has been going up, but so have the stock market. So has the Dow and the S&P. So gold's going up, yes, but so is the stock market. So is the stock market. So is the stock market. In a real, true, massive bull market, what happens is this. Gold keeps going up and the Dow goes down. Gold goes up and the stocks go down. So the people that are betting on the stocks, where are they going to put their money? They ask their fund managers, what do we do? I got to sell my stocks and they're going down. They say, is anything going up? They say, yeah, gold won't stop going up. Gold is going to keep going up as long as the tariffs are on and they're weakening the dollar, gold's going to go up. And I have news for you. Those of you who are thinking, yes, but they'll take the tariffs off. Too late. Too late. He can take the tariffs off all he wants now. The damage has been done. This is like, take a man who goes out and has an affair in public. Everybody sees him having an affair, and his wife is over there watching this. After it's over, maybe the guy goes home and he apologizes, and maybe the wife takes him back. That marriage is not the same again. It will never be the same again. So this business of the gold and Dow, it's called the gold to Dow ratio, has broken out massively in a big way in the last 2 months. Gold at first, gold just went up a certain amount. They have charts, technical analysis, and they have these charts. And the man that I follow, which I'm going to tell you about in a few minutes, Christopher Aaron, he noticed that it broke out. And everybody, all the gold people got so excited. Gold's going up and the stock market's going down. That means we're in a bull market. It went so extreme. Gold went up so much recently, and the stock market went down so much recently that the Dow to gold ratio has really exploded too much. Yes, it's great for gold, but when they widen that much, when they widen too much, it becomes an indication of a possible worldwide depression. It's a possible worldwide depression. Now, the gold and silver ratio had this breakage, and now they've come back in line a little bit. Gold is definitely moving upward, and the stock market generally is not. So the bull market is on. It's not so extreme, but that extremity is very, very important. That occurred is not a good sign. So when as I said earlier, when you have a real bull market in gold and silver, the stock market's going down and gold's going up. That's basically what's going to happen in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, because on the charts, it has broken. This is called technical analysis. So also, the gold to silver ratio in the ground, 1 ounce of gold in the ground, there's 9 ounces of silver. So in the 1920, from 1776 all the way to 1933, a silver dollar was $1 and gold was $20. It was similar to the ratio. Back then, the ratio was 16 ounces of silver for every ounce of gold in the ground. So they had a $20 gold piece and a $1 silver. That was the ratio. The ratio today is 100. If you have a gold coin, you can walk into a coin store and the ratio is 100 to 1. They won't give you 100 silver dollars. They'll give you 80 or 90 because they have to take a profit. You go in with a 1 ounce gold coin and you say, give me 80 ounces of silver, and they'll give you 80 silver dollars. That ratio is also out of whack. And in time, the gold and silver ratio is very, very likely to come down and down and down until it's maybe 20 to 1, 20 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold, etc. I want to mention this also. The tariffs are basically an economic war on China. For us to say to them, basically, you're not going to be able to sell to us in the United States, that is a real aggressive act on their economy. They are going to suffer massively if they cannot sell their goods to us. Yes, they can sell them elsewhere, but they're going to be hurt a lot. And this is what I want to say. If you think that China is a third world country and that they have no way to retaliate, think again. China can retaliate 6 ways to Sunday. They can do it in covert ways. They can do it in overt ways. They can. Now, one thing is that there's called the nuclear option. The nuclear option is if China ever wanted to destroy us, all they'd have to do is dump their dollars. They buy our bonds. How do we keep all this debt going? We print money. We have all this debt. Well, they buy our bonds, and it allows us to keep functioning with these debts. If China says, all right, sell the bonds, it destroys the dollar. Now, they don't want to do that because before the tariffs, they wouldn't want to do that because they would get, if they hurt us, it hurts them. Now, if they can't sell to us, it doesn't matter whether they dump those dollars or not. Although they may not want to do that because we have nuclear weapons. So do they, but they don't want a nuclear war. But they could start selling the bonds, which just pushes the dollar lower again and makes gold and silver higher. So the thing to do now is to be buying some gold and silver stocks. I'll tell them, I'll give you a list of some of these. But understand that the connection of gold going up, the reasoning astrologically for that is that the currency is changing. Gold, I watch the money shows. Gold is 2,200. They don't mention it. 2,500. They don't mention it on the money shows. 2,800. They don't mention it. $3,000 for one stinking gold coin. $3,000. They're not mentioning it. It hits 3,500 a week ago. It's all over the money shows. Gold hit 3,500. Gold hit 3,500. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with the dollar. Gold hit 3,500. I'll tell you what's happening. Jupiter is leaving Taurus, and Uranus is radical change. It's now Uranus is going to be there for 7 years. It's been there for a year. Uranus is in the sign of currency for the next 6 years. The currency is changing. The central banks know that gold is they call it a tier 1 asset. Gold is a tier 1 asset. The central banks know that gold is money, but the people don't. The people, when they start hearing $3,500 gold, $3,700 gold, $4,000, they're going to start to say, wait, maybe that's the real money. So the currency is changing. Okay. Now, and the way to profit with that, yes, you go out and buy gold and silver coins. I would buy silver coins because they're a lot cheaper and they're more value. Eventually, silver will rise to meet the price of gold. So yes, buying gold and silver coins, I think everybody should have some. But if you want to get rich, where the real profits are, is the gold and silver stocks. Now, I'm not a broker. I'm not a professional. This is just my opinion. So I'm just giving you my opinion. You do your own due diligence if you want to buy that or not. But the gold and silver stocks, if a mining company has 1 billion ounces of gold of silver in the ground, they have 10 different mines, and they have 1 billion ounces of silver. Every time silver goes up $1, that company is worth a lot more money. Now, I have been in the gold and silver space all my life. I told you because I learned about it when I was 7 years old. And I've bought newsletters, and I've bought, I've invested in stocks, etc. And I found a man who does technical analysis. His name is Christopher Aaron. And this man, I bought his service. His service is where he does an hour long, usually it's about an hour long video that he sends to you every Thursday. And he shows you the charts of gold, silver, the stock market, all this, but he relates it to gold and silver mainly because that's his field. And this man is doing technical analysis with gold and silver. I've been following it for the last 7 months. And this man is a master at what he does. And what is so impressive about him is that there's a sutra in my book that for anybody, well, actually, Laurence Olivier, the greatest stage actor, Laurence Olivier was the greatest stage actor of the 20th century. He said, to be a great actor, what you need is absolute confidence and absolute humility. You can't have one without the other and really be great. You'll get lopsided. Christopher Aaron, he uses the charts, he uses the technical analysis, but he's not married to it, and he's always open to change. He's wonderful. I'm going to put up his information, but I also want to mention there's another man that I found about 10, 15 years ago named Don Durrett, and he has a website called Gold Stock Data. It is the best website for picking gold and silver stocks. He also does a newsletter every month. That's a website, and if you want the real, you can go to Gold Stock Data and see the website, but if you want the real information, you pay, I think it's $250 a year. With Christopher Aaron, you have to go to his site and you'll find out what it costs, but I subscribed for a year. You could do it for 3 months for $250, I think. But anyway, this is the information. Christopher Aaron, you can find him on Twitter, X, Christopher Aaron at iglobalgold.com, and Don Durrett, Gold Stock Data. And then the best website, just for free information, is very good, Gold-Eagle. So now, the gold and silver stocks, I should tell you right now, they have been battered. They are so undervalued relative to the gold price. The gold and silver stocks are undervalued about 8 times. So generally, people buying a 10-cent stock now should be 80 cents. People buying a gold or silver stock costing $1, they should be $7, $8 to reflect the gold price. And the gold price, I don't think, is coming down. I think it's going to keep going up. So I'm not a professional, but I know that I'm going to get a bunch of emails saying, which stocks do we buy? You have to do your own due diligence. These are just my opinions. I'm going to put this list of stocks up to show you, and I'll just leave it there for a couple seconds, and you can pause the video, and that's it. So Jaguar Mining, US Gold, Coeur Mining, Hecla Mining, Discovery Silver, Heliostar, Endeavor Silver, Avino Silver. Those are all I like. Those are companies I like. Then there's some cheaper ones there, Provenance Gold and Silver Tiger, Outcrop Silver, Silver X, AGX, well, Silver X. Anyway, those are some of the stocks that I like. So I would like to talk a little bit now about some of the sutras in my book, just a few of them because we've spent so much time on the gold and silver issue, but I really think that that it's important for people to know what's going on, and I think that there is real serious danger to the world with what's going on. The thing is, and let me say this, it's actually pretty impressive that we have a government that decided not to kick the can down the road. The reason we're in this mess of $30 trillion is because every time there's a problem, the government prints money. Now we have a government that says, we don't want to do that. We want to weaken the dollar. It's a strategy to try to fix the problem. It won't work. I think it's got about a less than a 1% chance of working. And I think it'll cause massive problems. That's my opinion. We'll see what goes on. But anyway, so I thought that I would just talk about a few sutras that I want to mention. So when you're doing astrology, if you're doing Jyotish, you're going to get some people that know their Western horoscope, and they get very upset knowing that you're using a different zodiac. They say, but my sun sign is Libra and it fits perfectly. But my sun sign, whereas it's, in Scorpio, it's in a different sign in the Hindu system. It'll be in Libra in the West and it'll be in Virgo in the East. And they say, but I'm not a Virgo. I feel like a Libra. And this really upsets people. And so the answer to this, in my opinion, is that the Western planets, the Western zodiac works better for the psychology. And I say to the people, I say, look, you don't hear me talking about your personality and behavior. If I did, I would be talking about your Western sun sign and the Western positions. So if people get upset by that, you want to tell them the Hindu system is more predictive. The Western is more about your psychology and behavior, etc. When you're analyzing a dasha or a bhukti, a period or a sub-period, so maybe the person's in a Mercury period and Mercury's in the 10th house, the house of career, and it's well aspected. And you think, oh, this would be good for career. But if Saturn is transiting that 10th house, hitting that Mercury, that's not going to be so good. On the other hand, you might see a planet in trouble. Maybe Venus is in the 4th house, the house of mother and real estate, and it's in trouble. But Jupiter's transiting that house. Things may go well. So you have to look at the transits when you're looking at that. When you see a person with a terrible dasha or bhukti, well, a terrible dasha coming up, they're coming to what looks to be a terrible dasha. You always want to tell them, look, go back and look at the sub-periods of that planet and see, were they good or were they bad? If it's looking like the dasha is bad, 90% of the time, the sub-periods are going to be bad as well. So they know what to expect. Another sutra is you must use the transits of Rahu. Not the transits, the aspects. You must use the aspects of Ketu. I was looking at Bruce Willis's horoscope. He's a famous actor, Bruce Willis. I was watching a movie he was in. And I remember hearing that he had a stutter. He had a speech problem as a child. I looked at the horoscope. There was Mercury in the 6th house, a bad house. But the 6th house is not like the 8th and 12th. It grows, it gets better in time. But it wasn't just in the 6th house. He has Jupiter, Ketu in the 10th house in Gemini. Mercury's in the 6th house. Jupiter and Ketu are in the 10th. That Ketu in the 10th is aspecting that Mercury in the 6th within 2 degrees. So Mercury's in a bad house, aspected by that Ketu. That's going to cause speech problems. You've got to use Rahu and Ketu aspects. The Rahu aspects will usually throw power. They'll give power, which is usually good. But if there's a lot of malefic energy on a planet or a house, and Rahu joins in, it's not going to help. But if it's just an average planet and not afflicted, Rahu comes along and aspects it, it'll usually make it more powerful. Because Rahu represents insatiable cravings and desires for worldly power. Why is the moon so important? The moon is so important because the moon represents the nurturing in childhood. So whatever happens to that moon, if that moon is in trouble, the child is in trouble for the first 6 or 7 years. It forms an imprint on the personality, and that person expects life to be difficult the whole life. And so they don't have confidence. They don't expect good things to happen. So the moon is critical. If the moon is very good, and the first 6 years are good, they're expecting life to go well, and that helps. That helps. Remember that astrology has limitations. You're never going to be able to predict everything. And remember that some people go through karma that is mass karma, not personal. So in the 2008 collapse, 6 million people lost their homes. It wasn't personal. It was mass karma. It's not going to show in the horoscope. I mean, it might in some cases, of course, but 6 million people losing their homes, you're not going to find 6 million people having bad fourth houses at that time. It's not going to show. The millions of people that died in the Holocaust, their deaths are not going to show. It's mass karma. When you attend conferences, and there's a choice, which there shouldn't be. A good conference should not put one teacher up against another, but they do because they have so many teachers. When you go to conferences, don't choose the most fascinating topic unless the teacher is really good. Generally, the best thing to do is if you find a teacher that's really good, go to whatever lecture they're teaching. The Varga charts, the divisional charts, are very, very time sensitive. They are very, very time sensitive. So you have to be able to know how much time is going to throw off a particular Varga. So the career chart changes every 15 minutes. So you have to be able to know when it changes, because if a person's born 1 minute before the change, you don't want to use that divisional chart. You have to use transits from the moon and from the ascendant. So Saturn may be transiting the fourth house, but Jupiter might be transiting the fourth house from the moon and aspecting the ruler of the fourth house from the moon and the ruler of the fourth house. So the Saturn transiting the fourth house might not be as bad because Jupiter's transiting the fourth from the moon and the ruler of the fourth from the moon, etc. You've got to use both. Many times you'll see horoscopes where there's all the benefics are afflicted. I see this pretty often. Jupiter's hurt, moon is hurt, Mercury is hurt, Venus is hurt. In those cases, you have to tell them life is never going to be sweet and rosy, but you can make a difference in the world, and making a difference in the world will give you confidence. It'll give you contentment. It'll give you happiness. So that's very, very important. And when you see all the benefics wonderful, 3, 4 benefics aspecting each other, and it looks great, those people can oftentimes be lazy and not get a lot out of life. And ironically, those people, they complain, they say, I'm not happy because I'm not accomplishing anything. They're not accomplishing anything because there's so much benefic luck in the horoscope that they just don't work hard. They don't have any urgency. And when you see that luck in a horoscope, you want to look to see, does the person have enough stress? They can have really great benefics, but they could also have some trouble, some hard aspects. That's important. They should have some hard aspects to give them some urgency. Otherwise, they just feel lazy. They just feel too happy and lazy. When you're analyzing health, it's not just about the first house and the sixth house. Actually, some astrologers just look at the sixth house, which is the house of health. But you've got to look at the first house, which is the body, the sixth house, which is the health. And then you just have to look at any planet that is massively afflicted. So if Jupiter is massively afflicted, you're looking at allergies, liver, gallbladder, spleen. If Saturn is afflicted, you're looking at the teeth and the bones, problems with teeth and bones, arthritis. Venus would be the throat, thyroid, reproductive system. Mercury, lungs, intestines, nervous system, etc. Moon would be the stomach and the breast, the menstrual cycle. The moon is also the brain. If the moon is very afflicted and Mercury is very afflicted, those are mental planets. They're going to cause headaches, things like that. Make sure you tell people that have Kuja dosha, Mangal dosh, Mars affliction harming married life. Tell those people, look, 40% of the people have Mars affliction. So, and if one person that has Mars affliction marries another that has Mars affliction, it works better. Each person is waiting to be victimized in marriage. It gets canceled out. That's what the Indians do. Any planet within 2 or 3 degrees of a planet ruling the 6th, 8th, or 12th house is going to cause damage. So you could see person's Venus is right next to Jupiter, and it looks fantastic because Jupiter's a benefic, but Jupiter's ruling the 6th, the 8th, or the 12th. That Venus is going to suffer. It's going to get luck from Jupiter. It's also going to suffer. A planet right next to Venus might look fantastic, but if Venus is ruling 6, 8, and 12, it's also going to cause some problem. So, okay, so I would give more sutras, but we've taken up a lot of time already. So hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.